Hey y'all. So what you're about to watch is my first interview on this channel as part of a series. Who knows what I'll end up titling it at the bottom. It'll either be WoodWords, Words with Woody, or just Words with. We'll see how it goes on what I decide to kind of title this series here. Taking votes, so we'll see. I could change it too. It's my product. I can do what I want. This interview is with Mr. Hayden Lindsey, LPC, LMFT, sex therapist. Great conversation today. We did have quite a few technical kind of hiccups, so you are going to notice a bit of a change in kind of quality in potentially the audio or video as we go. This was recorded through Riverside, which is a platform kind of like Zoom. It's supposed to give you better quality. So I'm recording this before I actually do any of the editing down below. So yeah, it's a great conversation. We went over so many different topics, so many aspects of his life, shared and commiserated on what it's like to be in this field, what it's like to be a musician, how grief intersects with aspects of therapy and music and sex. Fantastic, fun conversation. I can't wait to have more conversations with other individuals. And so this is Hayden. All right. So Mr. Hayden Lindsey, Esquire Jr. the Third. Finally like got that. You in here. So great
fourth time's the charm.
Right. Well, so this is the inaugural episode of, I'm still going back and forth on the title of it. So maybe you can kind of help me decide which sounds better to you. Words with Woody, or just Words with, or what's the other one I had? WoodWords.
WoodWords.
WoodWords vibes with you better? All right.
The hard words with wood. We'll workshop it.
Yeah, we will. All righty, man. So once again, thank you for coming on. I've been looking forward to getting to have a conversation with you, get to know you a little bit better. Like I said, so to kind of start off, my experience with you is it was seeing you perform the solo guitar. Ooh, look at that. Already fucking us up. There is
they're blowing us up. We're going viral.
People want to know. They want to know all the big things, right? So when you were performing at the Sexual Health Alliance 2024 Sex Therapy Conference, right? You're doing the hoedown, and I came in there momentarily, right? And it was weird for me to go to this thing because I'm not I've been performing on stage, what did I calculate it now to? 33 years, something like that. So you would think I'm not as nervous about being in large groups of people. And yeah, I'm a wallflower, right? So I went in there and I was entertained by your performance. And we had the conversation about our blue shirt, that cornflower blue shirt, right? Oh, yes. No, it's royal blue.
Royal blue, yes.
That's how I introduced myself to you. You should. Like I said, I was planning on it. I did not. I feel bad now. We can do the therapy thing later on for it. But it was that shirt, our bonding over blue button-up shirts, which kind of kickstarted me introducing myself to you. And then it was your sex and grief discussion, which really, really made me go, I kind of want to know more about this guy. So
means a lot.
Yeah, it was a very interesting exploration into grief and kind of the multifaceted aspect of grief and how it matriculates into so many different aspects of life, and how grief is not just this. And I think we kind of waxed philosophical during that discussion, was how grief is not just this one monolithic thing of being the death of a person, but also kind of the depth of a concept kind of leading out of that. And so that was really kind of intriguing to hear somebody else kind of recognize that distinction and how it affects people going across ways. So that's how I came to kind of be interested in wanting to know more about you and learn about your career. So Of course, I have your websites up because what good interviewer wouldn't, right? Also, listen to some of your music, and we can dive more into that here down the way. Because there's some, especially the song you did about Austin, right? When it was weird, or it was your song. It was your song that I think somebody else recorded, but it's your song, at least according to the description. So I definitely want to dive into that because it had me thinking about all the venues I used to play back in the day too. There, right? And that everything's been gentrified, right?
Right.
So help the rest of the people who didn't get the benefit of kind of being there and watching you solo hoedown. Is it still a hoedown if it's a solo hoedown?
I think next year, if they invite me back, I'll call it if I don't bring my band, I'll call it a solo hoedown.
Solo hoedown. It'll roll off the tongue so well. All right. So, you, in that Sex and Grief, you did give a background about yourself, right? That I did happen to go back and read a little bit more about and see that babyface you without the beard.
Right.
I might intersperse some pictures of babyface you if I have
throw that on there, please. But right. That was before the world chewed me up and spit me out.
We all have those pictures, right? There's the beardless ones of me. If you've been on my page, on my Facebook page, I know we're Facebook friends. Every once in a while, one of those fucking weird ones will come up too.
Who's that guy?
Yeah, I get that twitchy eye. All right, so if you can, kind of walk us through the impetus of getting into the world of psychotherapy and then what moved you into sex therapy, right? No rush, however much you want to describe.
Well, I might start by going back to that conference that we met at, and that was just a really special moment for me to get to kind of take the two things I think I'm halfway decent at, which is psychotherapy and music, and kind of get to do them in at the same function. And I do remember telling my musician friends here in Washington that I'd gotten a gig in Colorado, and they say, "Oh, where are you playing?" I said, "The Sex Conference." And it was a really, really unique thing and a unique experience. I think I opened up for the porn screening that we did, right?
It was right afterwards.
Yeah. In the music world, as you know, it's all about who you open for. And so I have, these friends that have opened for, George Strait and Willie and all these, big names. And, I got to open for, a female-oriented, queer-positive porn screening. I'm like, rock on. That was super cool. And then getting to watch that with 30 other I don't know if you stuck around for that, but
I saw some of it. But I'm not a night owl. I'm very old now. My body, my circadian rhythm has definitely said 9:30 is bedtime. Right.
Yeah, that was a tough conference because they would have things that went up, into the wee hours, and then this amazing speaker is on at 8 a.m. and I'm rolling out of bed at 10 because I was performing or whatever. But it was a joy to kind of warm up the crowd for the porn screening. And then obviously to give the talk was an honor as well. And the talk, the living, loving, losing, the interplay of sex and grief and loss and intimacy. I probably need more than 90 minutes to talk about that, but that was years in the making. And you kind of ask how I got into this. The joke I make with my clients is I didn't get into couples therapy is one of my primary modalities and interests. But I didn't get into it because I was like, I'm really good at relationships. This relationship thing is easy. I'm going to teach people how to do it and just charge them a bunch of money. This sex, I'm really good at sex. I've noticed.
I've been taking down comment cards. Seems to be very, very great at it.
Yeah. But in my early early days of maybe shout out to Kristen. She was my first semi-serious girlfriend, and she'll maybe I'm sure she's going to be listening to this as you go viral and as you launch it. But that was, we were 17, and that was I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I, kind of considered myself romantic and a decent guy, and it blew up in my face. Like, a lot of first, young love does. And then, and then I tried it again, and it blew up in my face. And then it blew, by the third or fourth time, I kind of went, I'm going to try to figure this thing out, because this feels important. This like relationship thing. I'm noticing people that have good relationships, or what I think are good relationships 15 years ago, they're 20 years ago, they're happier. And, all signs are pointing to like, this is a really important thing. And so, I went and tried to learn everything I could about it. That initial search landed me on a trajectory into psychiatry, because that was the big dominant, if you have problems of the mind or the heart, psychiatry. And I actually did 2 years of medical school, and then I did a rotation in my, rotated through my psychiatry rotation, and went, whoops, I made this is not what I thought that was. And
that's an expensive pile of dog shit to step into.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know if you solicit tips on your Patreon or whatever you're doing here, but if anyone wants to donate to the Hayden's unused education, student loans for unused education, still paying those off.
I'll put the link underneath. I promise.
Yeah. And then there'll be like a cutaway here for the 5 seconds of me crying off screen. But and by the way, I have nothing against psychiatry. I just don't have the brain for it, and a lot of life saving. I think when done responsibly, it's life changing and life saving. But I made my way into the world of counseling, and really fell in love with family therapy and the systems theory, and some wanting to help people through relationship. And we initially, of course, in the therapeutic relationship, but I got really interested in helping people, because as a therapist, I'm expendable. I want to help people build a relationship with their important other person. So like, right. Yes, I really value our, the therapeutic relationship, but my main thing is, you have a partner that's really important to you, and you're feeling disconnected from them. That's the relationship that I care about. So I started doing couples work, and I was actually just thinking, 2015, I saw my first couple. So this is a decade in for me as far as the practical doing therapy, doing clinical work, and feel like I've been studying much even before that, but 10 years of couples therapy. And, couples kept coming in with these problems that I knew nothing about. One of them being sex, which is how I ended up studying sex therapy and getting really interested in that. And then the other being how to deal with grief and loss, and certainly with death, but not always just death. And then I was noticing that these things sometimes collide, the loss and the grief with the sex and the intimacy. And I've experienced that in my own romantic, intimate life. So that is kind of the quick and dirty version of how I landed at that conference playing country music, which is a lot about grief and loss and sex itself. So it kind of made sense to to do both.
All righty. So I would have never picked psychiatry. Well, I think maybe it's the beard. Maybe it's the beard and the hair.
If you saw that, yeah.
If I go by your younger picture, maybe. Yeah.
I used to wear a tie and have a clipboard, and I did all that.
Do you own any ties anymore?
I do, but I use them for partying, not professional stuff. I actually have a nice blue plaid suit, like your 3-piece with the vest like that. I love that color, and if I'm wearing that though, I'm usually doing something fun. I'm dancing or drinking beer, or whatever it is I do. Mardi Gras. That suit has seen some things.
These vests are a relatively newish thing for me. I started doing that about maybe 2.5 years ago, and I'd liked the idea of vests, but I always felt like I couldn't be one of those people that wear vests, right? There's cool people that wear vests, and then there's me that would look like an asshole wearing a vest, right? And I especially remember feeling this when I used to be, I'm not going to name drop the company, but I used to be an operations director for a health facility, and I went to one of our conferences up in Addison, Texas, and there was a physician that was next to me, and he looked sharp as hell, and he was wearing a very similar kind of style to me, just like he wore dark denim. He still wore a nice button-up shirt, dress shirt, and he wore a vest. He said, and he even said, "Fuck jackets. I'm not about the jacket."
Nice.
He doesn't do ties. He doesn't do jackets. He said that's how he goes and sees clients. That's how he goes to parties. That's how he goes to formal events. He's like, "This is my style." I was like, "I envy you, sir." And I was I didn't have the confidence. I was still wearing like company attire, with our fucking logo here, and thinking like that was me being hot shit. That was where I wanted to be, and my own fear of being seen as an asshole stopped me from that. So, this is me kind of embracing that aspect of it.
Love it.
Feels good. I actually feel like I'm ready to do work when I come and do this. And, which is weird, I don't like anything with sleeves outside of here. I rip the sleeves off of all of my shirts I can.
Sleeve monster.
Yeah. Like your shirt, Go Climb, it wouldn't have no sleeves.
Oh, this is my Go Climb a Cactus shirt. I'm always interested in unique ways to tell someone to fuck themselves. I don't know if you allow cursing on your but yeah, Go Climb a Cactus.
Mm-hmm. I think I have a shirt that has no sleeves. Obviously, it says, "Thou mayest ingest a satchel of Richards."
That's a good one. We could have a whole conversation on fashion in the therapy world, and I sort of, part of my brand, if you could call it that, is I wear a lot of like band T-shirts, and I kind of ditched the like I said, the white coat and clipboard years ago, and there are probably people that would look at me and go, "I don't want to go see that guy. He looks very unprofessional." And then I get a lot of people. That's fine, and they're entitled to that, and then go see someone else. But I have a lot of people that appreciate that I just kind of show up authentically, and I think it would be quite jarring to most of my current clients if I went full bore on because I clean up pretty good. I could make myself look a little more dapper, and but the T-shirts and band T-shirts and dive bar T-shirts has been working for me last few years. So maybe I'll grow up one of these days.
No, please don't. You're already too tall as it is. What are you? I think we talked about that. You're like 6'1"?
Oh, that maybe with my boots on.
Yeah. At 5'8", everybody's 6'1". If you're not my height, you might as well be 6'1" or 6'3", right? I'm always wondering how the air is up there.
I think I'm maybe 5'9", and then I got the stiletto cowboy boots that.
Oh, that's the hack. Notes. Compensatory boots.
Was that the Rick the Rick DeSantis? Yeah, they're not quite that tall.
The lifts. The diagram showing how his feet must fit in those shoes. Is amazing.
So actually, when I do therapy, I at least when I was doing it in person, I would take my shoes off, and I would always make sure I wore clean socks. And clients would often take their shoes off, and we'd sit together in our socks and talk about life and do trauma work, and that became part of the brand too. The no shoes T-shirt.
Which that's an interesting point I want to ask about. What was that shift like? You mentioned having almost like a past version of you that was like, I got to dress a certain way. I got to dress the therapist route. I got to do these things that cascade an external version of what I believe others would expect as a professional. And then at some point you made that pivot. What was that change like to go towards that, as you said, authenticity?
That's a great question. The no shoes is actually a funny story that I'll start with, and then I'll circle back to your, if I may. One of the things they don't tell you when you first get into this field is you're broke when you start. You get out of grad school, and you're either in a lot of cases working for free, and so I worked for this wonderful nonprofit and volunteered, and it was also a training center, so I got to see my caseload of clients, learning to do therapy, which is what I do now and what I wanted to do. And then I had my, a lot of us coming out, our first job out in the real world is in a hospital or a treatment setting, something more entry level and steady, because it does take time to build a caseload. And if you got bills to pay, you take your 12-hour shifts at the psych hospital or the treatment center or wherever. So I was working at a treatment center in Austin, and then a nonprofit. And I was broke, man. And I essentially ran out of gas on the way to seeing a client. I don't think my car didn't quite die, but it was close enough to dying for me to want to like pull it off and get it somewhere safe. And then you probably read it in my bio. One of my hobbies is trail running, and so I thought, I'll just run to my client, and 2 miles uphill. Austin's not the hilliest town, but it does have some elevation if you're starting down there by the river lake. And I was wearing my loafers because I was still going for the buttoned up professional look. And I thought, these are going to give me blisters if I wear them. So I took my shoes off, and I rolled my pants up, and I ran down 7th Street up towards and then cut up towards MLK barefoot. And I threw my shoes in my backpack along with my laptop and my books and whatever else, and I took off down took off up the road uphill. And I got to the door just in time to see my client that I had essentially stood up because I was 15 minutes late, and he was biking away. And I felt so bad that I had stood this guy up. But and then to add insult to injury, I don't know. I think running out of gas and not having enough to fill my tank was insult, and then maybe some blisters, injury. I got into the therapy room for my 10 o'clock and opened up my bag, and I was missing a shoe. And so one of my shoes had fallen out. The bag had come unzipped, and I had lost a shoe. And so I saw my 10 o'clock just in my socks, and she came in and went, "That looks pretty comfortable." And she took her shoes off and sat down and we did therapy in our socks together, and it just kind of became a thing after that.
Yeah.
And I told her that story. We worked together for a long time. I told her that story like 5 years later, and she just bust out laughing. But so that's the story behind the no shoes. I think as you're kind of talking about this transition shift I made. There's this old idea of the therapist as kind of the blank slate and the expert.
The tabula rasa.
Yes, and I've gotten so much feedback from clients who went and saw someone a little more old school, and they kind of go like, how's your day? And the other the therapist says, why do you want to know how my day is? Like it's some sort of transference thing, and I just kind of like, we can just like be people together, and I don't necessarily have to be this blank slate. I don't want to like put my shit on other people. So if I'm struggling with something, I don't dump on my clients, but I talk about myself, and I think part of that is reflected in the dress. I don't. I like to dress up when I go out to a nice dinner. If I'm seeing 8 people back to back, I want to feel comfortable throughout the day. In fact, I started bringing a few spare shirts because couples make me sweat. If I have a few couples on my calendar, I usually have to change shirts once or twice a day. So I'd started to make that shift, and then when I got independently licensed and was kind of no longer beholden to my supervisor, who was wonderful, just had a different vibe. Once I kind of got out on my own, I really took off. So that's kind of how the transition from the clean cut button up to whatever this is.
There was a point when you're talking about running up 7th Street. I was like, who knew that was a toll road that only accepts shoes as currency?
I went back that night, and I think my mom wired me $20 to put some gas in my tank, and I went back that evening, and I found my shoe, which was kind of, it was nice. It was sort of a win, but then I also had this moment of like, no one of all the people walking by downtown Austin, like no one wanted my shoe. Like it was a little bit of a blow to my ego. And I wondered how many homeless folks were looking at it going like, I don't want that.
This is last year's model.
That's out of fashion, but
right. There was as you were talking about that transitional state, right? It was it took me back to talking with some students, right? Because I don't want to like make myself sound like I'm like long in the tooth in mental health. I'm really not, right? You could probably argue, and I made a long post about my military thing on my Facebook that kind of gives some background to where you could say I did use some kind of Rogerian approaches in my medical approach when I was in the service, when I was with clients in my med surg or trauma, right? Is I did incorporate a lot of that without knowing I was doing that. So you could argue that age and that kind of approach, my bedside manner, kind of put some groundwork to it. And when I was going through school, I was always trying to figure out like, well, what's the theory? And then I just said, I don't care as much about the theory. I want to be me. I didn't want to be beholden necessarily to a theory, right? And where this has come up is as I've kind of gone back to school to talk to students, right? So sometimes I'll go and do presentations. I'm trying to get more of us into the sex therapy field. So I'll go specifically do a presentation on what sex therapy is, what sex therapy isn't, and also
you're trying to disseminate the
yeah, exactly, right. Yeah, I'm trying to shoot forth all the information, right? It is a copious amount of information.
See, kids, you can make pervy, bad penis jokes if you join the sex therapy world.
Yep. You can learn all the bad ones there are. But so talking with them, one of them asked about how, because they're also interested in how I started my private practice so soon after kind of graduating and everything. And he said, well, what is the theory that you felt has been the most helpful to you as a therapist and as a sex therapist? And I said, the theory of Matt. And they just kind of looked at me confused. And so I just kind of told them, the thing I think that helps me feel the most comfortable here is when I'm not trying to be the therapist. I recognize the role delineation, right?
Sure.
And it's also that incongruency. If you're just operating from a textbook presentation of what therapy is supposed to be, my argument is, how does the person actually see you as somebody that truly gives a shit about them, right? Like your example, when you come in and say, how was your day? Oh, what makes you want to know about my day, right? It's like already you're being examined, right? And how many of us feel comfortable to be vulnerable in an environment where we're being examined and we're being scrutinized like that? Not to say that as therapists we aren't doing that, but do we have to be so overt about it and create that, I'd argue, almost kind of like a hostile environment?
100%.
Pseudo welcoming, right? It's welcoming, but not really.
Most people don't want to be evaluated; they want to be seen.
Yeah, and that's something that the only way to show them that they're being seen, my perspective, is, do I create that environment where I can demonstrate my ability to be myself and allow them to be themselves? So that way they see how big the room is and they said, you get to take up as much space in this room as you want. I'm going to. So you take up as much as you want, like demonstrate. That's why there's like, as much as there's like textbooks and stuff, there's weird things in this office, right? Like I have a stuffed testicle, but I'm also inclusive. I have a stuffed clitoris too.
Much bigger than most people realize.
Yeah. Now you're going to get a clitoris size queens happening here, or size kings and queens. Yeah. So I really resonate with that idea of like, what is it like to just go, I'm just going to be me. And what did you notice in that kind of change once you started to become more Hayden and less Hayden LPC?
I started making more money. I'll tell you that. That was a happy, that was not my intent, but it was a happy vibe. I started getting more clients, and I started keeping the ones that were coming in, and I was getting, I don't want to say better clients, because I don't think there's such a thing as a good client, bad client, but like a better fit. And something I noticed working in agencies and group practices is, you just get who you get. And sometimes it's just about who is available on the schedule, and it's not always a great fit. And of course, the research over and over, tell people this on consult calls, and I'll talk about it with other therapists till I'm blue in the face. But the therapeutic fit is, really key for the success of treatment, which I also use in air quotes. But I'm just huge on fit, and I found that when I started becoming more Hayden, I started attracting the people that I could best help, and I would kind of like screen out the ones that I couldn't help, which is were not a good fit, and I don't want to see them either if I'm not going to be the one to help them. Right. So that's I uptick in clients, uptick in retention. I started even like you kind of talking about marketing. I started just being more authentic in my marketing. Actually, I just started marketing. There's so much. there's like vulnerability because we're not selling a car, we're not selling a refrigerator, we're kind of like selling ourselves, and so there is a vulnerability in the marketing and putting yourself out there. And I shied away from that for a long time because I was, I wasn't comfortable who I was. I wasn't sure I could help people, and I was, just lacking confidence, and so I avoided that. And of course, it's crickets on the inquiry line if you're not if people don't know about you, they can't find you. So
Right.
it just really, I'm really glad you asked that question. It just kind of unlocked everything for me.
And something that might be of value, especially for other like student therapists that might watch this video, hopefully, or anybody, because it's going to be posted on my page, but also like my professional page and my YouTube page, like so Instagram, Facebook, and all that stuff.
OnlyFans.
And also my YouTube, right? And OnlyFans, yeah. Actually, I do have an OnlyFans that I'll be launching soon. It's not with me not being nude, but talking about sex topics in a way that I can't do on YouTube without demonetization, but still be able to do that, right? Like if I need to do like demonstrative models, like one thing I'm also getting in is a lot of anatomical models. If we need to do demonstrative things, the YouTube will nuke me out of the sky like Duck Hunt, right? And I'm not trying to have that dog laugh at me like that. So I want to get as many different avenues as I can to try to do kind of embrace that kind of educational role that I see as it's kind of my calling, right? So to tie that back in before the ferret takes off with the rest of my thoughts is for students that are kind of looking at this, or even LPCAs, right? They're thinking about what is it like to go out there and make your own path as a therapist, opening your own practice, putting yourself out there. Something about what you said about how now you're able to know who isn't the right fit for you. Mm. That is a hard thing for new therapists to do, right? Is to decide, not to decide, but to be able to make that call when the fit is not right, when the vulnerability of the success of your company, the success of your brand is like, well, if I say no to this, that's $85, $100, $120 that I don't get, and I have light bills. And that may encourage us to take people that are not congruent, or not going to get benefit for the sake of the bill, right? So what was that journey like for you to get to that point of saying, this is not the right fit for me, that you feel confident in yourself saying, kind of having that boundary, the no, where you could say no in a way that honored them and yourself?
It was a lot of kind of like you alluded to, saying yes to kind of I think there's an inner radar that kind of beeps a little bit, and but you have to calibrate it. And I had a few of these few clients that just kind of it wasn't working out, and there's a lot of ego involved in like, I can help this person, no one else has ever helped this person, but I can help this person, and being able to kind of discern when to like, oh, I'm in over my head, or I need to refer, or this is poor boundaries, and it's some trial and error, and I definitely think supervision helps, and having someone a little more experienced kind of guide your way. I was also the kind of intern that didn't want to ask for help, and kind of just suffered in silence. But as far as the financial piece, I joke that I quit my day job 4 times before I kind of made the private practice thing stick, and I think that's you're pointing to why it's a clinical reason why it's so important that private practice therapists understand the business side of things, and understand how to market and run a viable even if it's just a solo enterprise, a solo practice. It needs to be financially viable, because then you're putting yourself in a position where you're we can't serve our clients well if we're not taking care of ourselves. But
absolutely.
A lot of trial and error, long and short of that.
Yeah, because I know I've definitely I struggled with that at first, especially when I still wasn't fully licensed. I was going my associate, and there was a shift that happened. Like you, to kind of fully connect with you again, is I was working at a behavioral hospital here locally, and it was I did some of the inpatient there, but a lot of it was outpatient IOP and PHP, which group therapy, which for anybody, and I'll see how you vibe with this. I felt group therapy made me a better individual therapist because it's herding like 14 cats at the same time, some for between 3 to 6 hours a day of the same people. That's a lot to try to keep people like together, right?
Yeah.
And there was a kind of a shift where I had started my business. Like Woodworks Therapy actually started September 2023. But I didn't see my first client, and I'd been paying for like simple practice that whole time, like any day now, any fucking day now, right? One day the phone will ring.
I know that feeling.
Yeah, and it wasn't until it's kind of serendipitous. It wasn't until there was going to be kind of a leadership and structural change where that affected how I was going to get the rest of my hours, and also just the way I engaged with work, that had me go, okay, I kind of need to make this happen, right? And so in making that happen, that's when I got this building, and now I started to generate clients. And it was also that concern, like I feel like now the impetus to take everybody is important. And so yes, I had poor boundaries. And so I was taking on anybody that came in. So couple, come on in. Let me do. I'd love to do couples. I took one class in couples therapy. Right, I've got that Gottman level 1. Let's roll. Right, which kind of the Gottman level 1 is almost like Oprah. Say, look under your seat. If you went to couples therapy training, everybody got a Gottman level.
Yeah.
Right. So it was taking those in and then going like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I'm having to like soul search a lot. Like, am I doing the right things? And those clients, thankfully, kind of, what's the phrase? Positive attrition. They positively attrited their way out of the thing, teaching me a valuable lesson along the way and kind of making me a better therapist. But it's, that kind of the fear that if you don't take this, it's going to be, you never know that another client is going to come your way. Right. So what is something that was helpful for you to kind of quell that fear? That if you don't have this next thing lined up, right, we're at the mercy of people deciding they want to give us a chance when they're in their lowest moment, right?
Right.
What helps quell that fear? Either helped in the past or helps now when you're like, census is kind of dipping a little low, or phone hasn't rang in a while, or Psychology Today isn't knocking. My website isn't knocking. How do you help navigate that so you have your own coping skills for that?
The first time when I kind of it finally like felt sustainable, I had kind of an influx, and I actually had a moment years ago where I sort of went viral in a really interesting circle. For a while, I was the pickup artist therapist, and that was a lot of fun. And I would love to get back into doing that. But so I had half of my caseload was working with guys from the pickup artist world, and they were wanting to like date more authentically and kind of heal their most of them hetero guys, wanting to heal their stuff around women, and I think carrying some misogyny, and I have a lot of thoughts on pickup as a culture and a phenomenon, but maybe another podcast. But I worked really beautifully with some of these guys, and but they filled my calendar for about 6 months, and I kind of had this moment of like, oh, I've made it. I'm finally kind of hitting those numbers that I've been wanting to hit for years, and I've made it. And I sort of let my foot off of the marketing gas, and had positive attrition. Like you said, I'm always trying to work myself out of a job and I have some clients that I've seen long term, and that's just what we do that because we walk through life together, and it's kind of part of their self care, like going to the gym every week. But for a lot of people, I'm trying to get you what you need and get you out in weeks, months, year, whatever. But there was the numbers dropped, and so did the bank account, and had some lean months where I kind of had to scrape by, and that was a really important lesson in kind of preparing for those lulls, and but it also just taught me, like, if you do what works, and you keep doing it, and you keep trying new things and trying to reach out to people in new ways, like, you're going to be fine. And it's sort of I use this the word faith, maybe not in a religious sense, but kind of faith that people are going to show up. Like, we offer a useful service, and as long as if I'm experiencing a dip, I'm using those hours that I'm not working with people to outreach and market myself. So I hope that answered that was a really a powerful lesson for me, and like, marketing is really the lifeblood of your business, and really I think expanding what I understand marketing to be, it's not hanging I used to think it was hanging a flyer in the coffee shop. I'm talking to you. This is marketing. I'm meeting people out. I met the nurse practitioner, across the street. That's marketing. Playing music is marketing. Networking. It's all kind of marketing, and just relationship building. And as I've done that and nurture that, I end up staying full enough, or as busy as I want to be.
Right on. Yeah, that is an interesting road to go down for each therapist, because I don't know how it was for your cohorts when you were in college. For mine, there was a lot of young 20-somethings that wanted to go into private practice. That was what they were immediately going to do, right? And that sounds ageist, so I'm saying 20-somethings. It just happened to be I was one of the oldest fuckers in the program. Not the woman who was like 64 years old, and English was a second language for her. So sweet. Loved her to death. Hopefully she's doing something. I haven't kept up with her, but hearing that kind of where we want to branch out, we want to do our own thing, we want to open our own practice immediately. It's like myself being in medical management and seeing like the how the sausage is made from the other end, it kind of gave me some hesitation. Like, there's a lot more to this, and even though this is something I too shared that declarative goal, there's a lot to it, and I need to have like a smart approach to it, and even still taking it as smart as I have, and with the support I have of my amazing wife Christy, it is still terrifying, right? And that's because I have, for lack of a better phrase, a safety net, right? I have the privilege of kind of a safety net in the way my relationship is in the structure. Not everybody has that. Right. And so I can only imagine the intensity of that when you're like, as you said, some lean months where you got to scrape by to make it. So those are important lessons to know. Okay, there is a level of scarcity here, right? And to understand that scarcity and kind of not despair upon it, but anticipate it and plan for it, is kind of a valuable thing that every therapist kind of has to feel on their own. Right. And hopefully more come through as unscathed as possible and continue to thrive. And now I'd like to kind of venture into differentials, though, right? Because we are both in the field specifying in sex therapy, right? So how did that become the pathway? First, how did you become aware of sex therapy as a specialization? And what's made you go, yes, me, sex therapy, we belong together, PB&J?
when did I first become aware of sex therapy? I think I had a professor in grad school who was asect the whole shebang, and asex an asect certified sex therapist. There, got it. It's a mouthful. That's not.
How'd your tongue taste there?
Cut. And she was the first one to kind of put it on my my radar, and I did take everyone takes your human sexuality course, at least so I'm an LPC, but did the dual LMFT. I think if you are an MFT, at least in Texas, you have to take that at least 3-hour, sex, whatever, which is really just the paraphilias, and the kind of the diagnostic language. And so I actually think the sex therapy training was a lot of like unlearning a lot of that. I got out into the real world and was working with couples, and had, aside from that 3-hour course, zero training in sex. And couples, they're coming in and they want to talk about sex, and for some of them, sex is a primary issue, and for some it shows up later. But I can't think of a single couple I'm working with, within the last however long, that we don't end up talking about sex at some point. And so I need to know something about sex if I want to help these people. And just the more I started out kind of self-study, and the more I learned, the more I just fell in love with it, and really, there's definitely this 15-year-old version of me that's like, that's so cool that you get to work with, help people have better sex. And helping people have better sex is like, a fraction of what we do. I work with a lot of sexual trauma, and that is just, if trauma is hard to talk about and sex is hard to talk about, sexual trauma has got to be one of the hardest things on the planet to talk about, in the just in the general walking through the world. And so it really is quite I take that very seriously, to be able to kind of meld those two things together, the trauma understanding and the sexual understanding. And it's not and go on. Such a great question. The more I study sex therapy, the more I'm just important I realize it is. It's it's about preventing sexual health in general. It's about preventing. We're kind of first line of defense for preventing diseases and unwanted pregnancies and high risk behavior. There's just so much beyond just kind of like how to have a better orgasm, which I love doing. But I think for some people, it's when you pull in the gender and relationship diversity stuff, for sexuality diversity, for some people, it's life-saving to have a person like me or you to tell them that, like, however they want to express themselves sexually or with their sexuality or whatever kind of relationship structure they want to have, that is okay. We may be the first person in their world to say that. I think that can be life-saving for some people. So I've kind of really seen the serious side. I got into it because of the pleasure and play, but there is a really serious side to this stuff as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's some people can get kind of caught up on the spicy aspects of it and think think that that's all it's about, right? It's just talking about that's that part, this is that other part, put those parts together, magic, right? And like you allude to, it's much more complex than that. It's much more nuanced than that, right? It's knowing that the training we have kind of finds its way into aspects like identifying the intersectionality of where sex therapy is useful in different dynamics, whether it's in partnerships or open relationships, non-monogamy, or just an individual grappling with their own internal identity, right? The skills things and the knowledge we pull from that we've had access to in training, and also the curiosity to find out this information about this. I don't know about this. It's a fucking weird thing. I want to know more, right? Being able to gather that, process it out, and talk about it with fellow colleagues that are also interested in this stuff, right? It finds, that's my experience. Sex therapy finds its way into areas where that may not have been initially what the person thought they were here for. And yet, though, without that training, without that skill set, I can't imagine our sessions being as impactful as they end up being without that level of the training. So with that, what was it like when you became aware of it and you're doing all your own self-identification of training and where you're lacking information, right? What was that next step to go certification route?
I think that's just a thing with me. If I'm going to do something, I'm not going to half-ass it. And I want to
full ass it.
Yeah, especially in the sex world, you want put your ass into it. I really just I was sensing again that this was really important and important to the work I wanted to do, and I didn't want to leave it up to me to just try to cobble it together. You know, there are some things that I can I know how to read, and I'm pretty good with Google, but I really wanted to get plugged into the profession. I think that was a big. I wanted to be a professional. I didn't want to be a professional that kind of dabbles in sex stuff. I wanted to be a sexual health professional, and that was a pretty significant turn for me. And I was also just having this thought the other day, like, I haven't historically gotten along very well with other therapists. I think we're kind of a judgy bunch, but there are two types of therapists that I love.
Pause there for a second. We're having like a Transformers impersonation contest for some reason. You good?
That sounds good on my end. I'm seeing, this can't be changed while recording, whatever that means. But all right. It's not bothering me.
Okay. I'll just kind of turn that down a little bit there. We'll see how that does. Because I can still hear you. Okay, cool. So we were whole ass. Speaking of whole ass. Alrighty. So pick up kind of where we were in the certification process, like how you ended up getting into that. Was we're kind of where you were left at.
Yeah, you had asked me how I decided I wanted to go down the certification track, and the short answer was if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. And I had decided that I didn't want to just be a therapist that dabbled in sex. I wanted to be a sexual health professional and kind of get plugged into the profession, because it is it's under the mental health umbrella, but it is its own field and own profession. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And I was having the thought last week that I historically don't really like therapists. I just haven't gotten along with them very well. We're kind of a judgy bunch. And there is this, I don't know, there can be kind of this is a professional term, pissing contest of like who can analyze who and whatever. And kind of going back to what we were talking about of like the difference between, listening with your heart and like analyzing a client or evaluating, and we do that to each other all the time. And I'm in these, therapy groups online and Facebook, and man, they get just as mean as any other group that I'm in. The heavy metal groups, I think, are the nicest people that I've seen. But there are two types of therapists that I really like and gel with, and one of them is sex therapists, and one of them is grief therapists. And something about those, so back to grief and loss meets sex and intimacy. There's something about those two fields that I don't know. I gel with, and I think those two types of professionals also know how to have a good time and just to enjoy. They know a thing or two about life, kind of maybe from two different angles.
Create an intentional pause here. So I'm going to stop. Look at that. Absolutely nothing happened. I don't know what anybody's talking about. We're all good. So, yeah, I actually just had dinner with my local psychotherapy group last night, and finally got to show some of them my office in here because they've only ever seen the picture. As the first time I've really had many other professionals come and look in here. It's like, it goes to a question I wanted to ask you about here, and then I do want to pick up on the grief thing because I don't want to leave that as a dangling participle, right? But it's the nobody uses that phrase. This is like an old man phrase.
I love it, dangling participle, or you don't end a sentence with a preposition.
Mm-hmm. So there was, so showing them that was really interesting because when we had talked a little bit ago about the kind of the notion that this is not just about all the spicy things. There's a lot of intersectionality that this field kind of entails, right? What has your journey been like as a cis male sex therapist? Because for one, cis male therapists are already underrepresented, right? There's not many of us. We're not nothing, but we don't make up a large percentage of it, right? There's a smaller percentage of sex therapists in general. I think there's like 4K of us across the entire U.S. I think if I remember, it's like depending on what stat you look at, it's either 1,800 to 4K.
Interesting.
And I can't really get a clear answer on that, but that's the margin, right? Either in the U.S. or across the world. So that's already a small enough group. And as you probably noticed, there was a lot of non-cis men that were also present there.
Sure.
Right. So specifically when you bring it into your own practice and how you bring sex therapy to kind of the masses, what has that experience been like for you to specifically get into that field as your gender?
A lot of comfort zone stretching, I think, is the first thing I'll say. Kind of in the from the beginning, and I'm like cannot say how grateful I am to have had that experience as a cis hetero dude. I think. I'll go on record saying this, like the best thing I have ever done for my own mental health is like hang out with more queer people. It is incredible. And they just kind of give you this permission to, because we all have those parts of ourselves that are, exiled or kind of hidden away. And the upbringing of cis men in this culture is we beat everything out of you, turn you into a man by beating the vulnerability out of you or beating the gay out of you, or anything feminine, emotionality, whatever it is, and to have the opportunity to hang out with people that are like different than me has really been like a homecoming for like for these other parts of me. It didn't change my sexuality. It didn't change who I'm attracted to. It didn't change my gender. It's like the big fear in conservative groups is that all of this is being pushed down the white cis man's throat, and we're trying to turn people queer and all that. Mm-hmm. And it's not. It's just people living alongside one another. But again, I'll go back and say that has been probably the most valuable part of my training and education has been the experience to meet and be challenged by and befriend people who are different from me, who have a different sexuality or a different understanding of gender and a different relationship styles. In addition to being cis hetero, I am also in a monogamous relationship, so I'm pretty vanilla in a lot of ways. But it has allowed me to meet clients in a completely different way as well. With I think I remember when I first started, I was seeing a young woman who was a little, what I would call, at the time I would have called it edgy, and I think that just meant she had tattoos on her arms or something. So that was the clean cut whatever guy coming. And how are you gonna, if you can't handle someone who's showing up to a session with tattoos and maybe living a little more of an alternative lifestyle, whatever that means. How are you going to show up for someone who is much different than you? So it's been a challenge and a growth process. I know that I've kind of done my work around that when people who are different than me want to spend time around me and don't, at least they haven't told me to my face that it's a cumbersome. It's been a gift. I'll just kind of leave it at that. Okay. Challenge and a gift.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. I think, honestly, I feel like my own, to kind of piggyback on that, my own experience has been, I probably faced more scrutiny from within my own field as a therapist than I have from clients. Because it's that they don't really understand what sex therapy is, right? It is, and that that I've kind of caught wind that's for myself is that I must be into really kinky shit if that's the field I'm going to go into, right?
Right.
And I'm a boring person. I think I'm boring. I have things I'm into, but I don't think I'm into things that, we know that there are some really spicy things out there that people that wear the nice button up jacket, right? And they do all the nice things, are into some interesting things in their free time. And sometimes they're not free time, right? That's when they come to us for problematic stuff. But that exists out there, and that I know I've experienced this kind of thrown on. Well, if you're into this, it must be because you also have these other proclivities, right? And that's not kind of a congruent thing. And it's not that somebody can't have those proclivities, but it's not a one-to-one that you must have this if you do this kind of a thing. So I don't know if you've experienced anything similar to that kind of this kind of categorical lumping in of your sexuality or your sexual interests with the field that you've chosen to specialize in.
I don't know that I've felt that personally, but that makes total sense to me that that you've encountered folks that kind of draw that, if this, then that. And I'm thinking of one of my favorite memorable lines at the conference we went to, and I don't know if it was Dr. Donahue or someone, one of the other many insightful people there, but that said that sometimes kink is doing it with the lights on. Everyone's everyone's definition of that is different, and just because I have a interest in this field doesn't necessarily mean I'm the super kinky. Again, I'm like on the vanilla. I was trying to come up with like a spicy vanilla, like a vanilla with maybe some sprinkles in it or something. But like, we don't have to. A client isn't going to come to us and feel pressured to go completely to the spicier side of the continuum. It's just there's something for everyone, and it's not a there's no pressure.
Right. Yeah. I absolutely. Like I said, the clients seem to be the ones. They're the ones finding me. The clients seem to be the ones like more like, oh yeah, right. It's basically how we set the pace at the beginning of the session, and it goes back to that authenticity, right? Especially with marketing, like, how do you put yourself out there to differentiate you from anybody else that might have a profile on Psych Today, right, or any of the other aggregate sites? It's how do you make you the one that somebody goes, yeah, I feel like they may get me, or that I can be myself. I can talk about the weird thing, right? The whole TikTok, say the weird thing, right? They can come in and say the weird thing, and it's not weird. It's just the thing.
Right.
So if possible, because I knew we've kind of skirted around the topic of grief, but it has been something that was, obviously was really close to your heart. How did that, if you're comfortable sharing it, what was the thing that brought grief so close to the way you integrated into your therapeutic approach?
I'm comfortable sharing just about anything with you except my OnlyFans. Let me see if I can put it in
Don't be stingy.
Put it in a succinct way. This, I think in my personal life, I've experienced loss, and I met, one of the first things I say is loss is not a contest. So, we don't compare losses, but I do know some folks that have had, some tremendous early on and continuous and accumulating losses throughout their lives. But I've lost a father. I lost my dad in 2008. Is right before that, he lost his sister, my aunt, and then a grandfather. Kind of in that three really important people to me within a few years, and then I lost a grandmother-in-law, and as I'm kind of going, there's a lot of layers to this. One of the things I got interested in was some of these folks would remarry, and I got kind of for a guy in my early, mid 20s, I started to get interested in like, what's this like widower thing about, and because I'm going to be on some end of that coin at some point, and like this is human shit, and maybe I'm a little young to be but I'm interested in this and in learning more about this, and I arrived at that sexuality. I think it was called human sexuality. It was my in grad school, and we had to write a paper and choose a topic on human sexuality. And I really wanted to write this paper on kind of the experience of the widow or the widower, specifically through the lens of sexuality. And there's like practical questions of like, when do I date again? When do I be sexual again? If I'm carrying the long-term caregiver for a spouse and I'm relatively healthy, is it cheating to go, have sex with someone else? Like, so these are all human questions that are kind of swirling in my head at just like a practical level. And then there's like this whole inner world of these folks that they're experiencing, the collision of their own sexuality and what that means, and then the loss, the grief of the loss itself. And I presented this. Part of the class was like we had to go around the room and to kind of present our topic, not before we wrote the paper. It was just kind of like, hey, make sure you know this paper's due in 4 weeks. We're going to go around and everyone say your topic. And I remember going around the circle, and then we got to me, and I said, I want to look at sex post bereavement, post losing a spouse. And the entire room of my colleagues laughed at me. They thought it was a joke or thought it was funny. And I had the same kind of like, what feels funny about this topic? It's just a moment of curiosity. I mean, in the moment, I was a little, I felt humiliated, or I felt some type of way about it, and it kind of fueled me. Like, I'm gonna go write the best fucking paper that anyone has ever, But I think there was sort of the ego level of like, fuck these people, I'm going to pursue this professionally. But at the human level of like, if this is something that my colleagues think is laughable, or they're uncomfortable, or they're either laughing because they think it's a joke, or they're laughing that because they're uncomfortable with it. And I've seen it in my own life. I've seen grandpa get remarried and have people go like, why is he doing that? And, I've seen it in my clients now, having worked with a lot of widows and widowers, and they're navigating the wild, wild west world of dating post that loss, that very, which I'm sure you can imagine is one of the single most stressful, devastating events a human can experience. And if my colleagues don't know how to talk about this, like, there's something here. There's something important here that I need to tug on this thread, because there are people out there that are dealing with this. In fact, most people at some point, kind of deal with some version of this. And so, that kind of led me down this journey of like, sex and death is kind of the funny, quote unquote, way that I put it. And so I kind of mentioned this in my presentation that you attended, that there are, a lot of different reasons to pursue a career path. And in this case, it was spite, just to spite these people. No, but it was, I think an act of love and wanting to follow I see this over and over again in my career path of like following the shame. What are the things that people don't want to talk about? And it's sex and death. Those are up there. Porn, addiction, all these things that I've kind of taken a liking to are things that are kind of shrouded in judgment and shame and misinformation. But so, yeah, I kind of followed this, originally starting with the idea of wanting to support widows and widowers. But as I kind of tuned into this world of loss, I was seeing it really everywhere. A couple comes in and, he loses his dad, and now they're dealing with the the immediate aftermath of that, and then 6 months later, she's wondering why their sex life is in the toilet. And when we start poking at it, it's grief. It's the Scooby-Doo mask. Or even a job loss can kind of be this identity shift and the grief of the financial setback, miscarriage, infertility. Is just all these when we kind of like hone our grief vision, our loss vision. We kind of see it everywhere, and it shows up in the intimate relationship, the way the couple talks about it or doesn't talk about it, or supports each other or doesn't support each other. It's just been, it's kind of all over the place. So I could go on, but that's kind of the long and long of it.
Well, then this might make it long and longer, because there's a phrase you had: the erotic is the antidote. The erotic is an antidote to death. I'm wondering if you could expand upon that.
Well, I won't take credit for that. That's the great Esther Perel, and in the she talks about it in the context of her upbringing in Belgium, and you can kind of see these communities that are all of it was leveled and ravaged by the war, and then some of them kind of came back to life, and then others, there are people there, but it just has this kind of like deadness to it all these years later. And she kind of talks about the people on one side of the street painting their houses bright colors, and they're singing and dancing and drinking, and they found a way to embrace life and living, and what she calls Eros, the erotic. So if there's death energy and life energy, and then on the other side of the street, the people that haven't been able to, and I hold no judgment as someone who has never experienced anything like that. I hold no judgment to any of those folks, but that's kind of the example she gives. And I think I've taken that idea and run with it, and that's part of the music that I do, and trying to eat, drink, and be merry, and the erotic being not just sex. Like I'm always trying to have sex, much to my partner's frustration sometimes, but it's. We have a lot of clients. The clients come in and they have depression, and what are the symptoms of depression? It's like you can't take pleasure in anything, and we call it anhedonia. And so there is this, medicate them and do all the other stuff, but we have to help people find their spark and find their joy and their passion and their curiosity and their creativity. And I think all of that together is what makes life worth living. And often the harder things get, the less we do those things, and then that becomes a kind of a feedback loop. So I'm like, the harder things get, the more you need friends and community and dancing and whatever your brand of Eros is.
Yeah, no. One of the things that called to mind for me, and it's something I touched upon a little bit ago about our shared kind of thing, is understanding that death is not just the death of a physical shell. It is the conceptual death, right? Like, so like extreme job loss, right? Or in the case of like an internalized identity, your gender identity, your sexual identity, the thing that makes you like who you believe you are based on this archetype of what it means to be, as an example here, like a man, like somebody that's like, it's non-psychosomatic erectile dysfunction. It is truly like, let's say they had to have a rather invasive prostatectomy. And so the prostatectomy has left them with this medically induced impotence that now needs these other kind of interventions, whether it be the tubing with the pump in there or the shots, and like the level of kind of grief at the loss of their virility, their purpose as a provider, is also kind of attached with their sexuality and their ability to engage in sex. And so it's kind of the depth of that concept of what it means to be them, and how do they establish a renewed sense of value and purpose when what they've identified and what kind of from a multicultural standpoint, right? How society kind of influences the way that archetype is structured for them. It's like, okay, this is you, and go forth and be this. And now that critical pillar that they believe is part of them is gone unless they do injections to bring the pillar back. Right? It's something I brought into many of my sessions is to expand out on it, because a lot of the same tools are used for that, right? So using grief informed therapy, using sex therapy techniques, right? Even person centered, using even like Sue Johnson EFT aspects of it, right? Kind of all making this kind of soup to help work through what is essentially grief, right? This big loss of a thing, right? So it's definitely something I've vibed with your presentation and kind of the way that you've kind of described it here. And I'm interested now how this moves into music for you, right? Because going back to the music video that I for the song, we talked before we started recording about the song that you go to, I still have it over here, HaydenLindseyMusic.com.
That's it.
You have a link to when we're no longer weird, right?
Right.
For me, that connected my experiences as a listener, connected to the death of an idea, because that's a connection that you and I have, is the Austin music scene.
Right.
I'm from Corpus Christi, and I've played Austin numerous times over my 33 years of music, right? And there's this kind of my own experience of grief in the loss of this scene that was something we aspired to connect to down here in Corpus. Is going to Austin, playing these legendary places, right? Something like the Dirty Dog on 6th Street. Used to love playing that venue, right? Now they're gone. I don't even know if Bull McCabe's is still open anymore. That was one I loved to play as well. So many others have kind of shuttered or been bought out and remodeled and lost their kind of weird, right? Which for those of us that have been ensconced in this scene for as long as we were, to see those changes, right? We can't help but kind of feel like we've lost a part of ourselves in the way a city kind of, or a scene is kind of either died or morphed in such a way that it feels like it's died. So I wonder if you could kind of take me down your connection with music, and in what way grief kind of plays an intersectional role with how you move into music.
Man, I'm give you the Interviewer of the Year award. I mean, that was such a beautiful line of interwoven lines of questioning. When I put out this music video, it's a demo that is performed by my good friend Jeff Plankenhorn. He's a fabulous multi-instrumentalist in Austin, and he essentially demoed it for me, and I wanted to put it out into the world. This kind of came around when the COVID stuff was accelerating what was already I think the death, as you said, of the old Austin, and I was going through a lot of grief about watching my places. The last domino that finally set me off was the loss of Threadgills, which had been there since I think 1938 or something like that, and I just had this moment of like, does no one in the city give a shit about our character and our culture and the things that make us unique and authentic? And so kind of in this fit of grief, I wrote this song, and I wasn't quite ready to record it myself, but had Jeff do it and put together a little video, threw it out into the world. And, you said it resonated with you. It got shared 5,000 times. I don't think that will ever happen to me ever again. Never said never, but 5,000, at least 5,000 other people connected with this idea of the death of the weird. And to kind of connect this with this, the Eros, an Eros being life energy. It's not just sex, but it's life and creativity and community and play. And when I go into these spaces, that's what I see. I see the community coming together. I see people trading creativity, trading songs. I've been to more than my share of, what I call like an Irish wake, a celebration of life at it looks like a dive bar, or it looks like an odd place to hold a funeral, and yet you pack these places with 200 people, 100, 200 people, and they're coming together, and there's the send off, and then there's the party after it, and I think that's what I'm talking about, and what I think Esther Perel is talking about when we say that death is the erotic is the antidote to death. And I know that she's been to Austin. She talked at South by a couple of years ago, and I went over to the Belgian beer bar downtown right around the end of her talk, thinking maybe she'd stop in for a Cold's Belgian Trappist or something, and sat there alone, and she never came in. So anyway, maybe she'll see this, and once you hit it big. And anyway, sorry I missed Esther, but I would be curious what she would say about the Austin weird and this. We call it weird, but authentic. The Eros in these places. I could go on.
Right on. Yeah, it is a feeling, right? When and I don't know how much of it sometimes is when we become. South Park had this thing about the member berries. You remember? I remember. I can't. Sometimes I don't know if that's old man energy or if it's true grief, or kind of both. Whenever these things are kind of changing around me, a lot of things I'm very pro change. In chaos comes new opportunity, right? So it's still kind of this feeling of loss whenever I try to go back to venues, even in my older age, right? I've played South by a few times, and every time I've gone has been a little different. And it feels like it's less and less. I don't want to necessarily use the home, because we're at home, because that's not home as a concept. And conceptually, I've never felt at home, but I've never not felt at home in Austin. It's a weird way of saying, like, kind of a play on words. I felt seen in that scene.
Yeah.
Right. Even if it wasn't my home, I still felt seen when I performed there. When I connected with audience members. When I connected with other bands there. But more particularly with you as a songwriter. I even put a little thing on here. Sometimes I know when I've written songs, I feel like songwriting lets me say things that that maybe I can't necessarily convey in the moment in a session with a client, right? There's this connection I've made with somebody that, at the risk of countertransference, I hold on to as kind of like a pin on the board behind me. It's like a true resonant, true connection that I otherwise don't have an outlet for. And sometimes when I do my writing, that's a place that all of a sudden that Post-it finds a place out into my art. I'm wondering, has there been, what has that been like, if at all, where you write a lyric and go, shit, that's the thing I couldn't say in session. That's the connection I wanted to.
Usually if I want to say something in session, I do. And sometimes that ends up being the most therapeutic thing. It's the thing I go, oh, I maybe shouldn't have said that. Yeah, I'm just thinking about the like when you say songwriter, and I am a songwriter. I identify as one. I've written songs and continue to write songs, and but when I think about my friends that are songwriters and kind of what their gifts are, and I have some friends that are just like these spectacular vocalists, and some that really write these like, you know, beautiful melodies on the instrument, and kind of these the music really sucks you in. And I think where, at least at this phase of my process, I am leaning more towards the storytelling is kind of where I've landed. And what is,
Okay.
You know, therapy is listening to, I don't know if I'm maybe frozen again.
You're good. It's a little glitchy, but it should be okay, especially when it processes.
Okay.
You're still here.
Oh, there we go.
You just went slightly potato face, but only slightly.
It was telling me this thing's always accusing me. It says, you're unstable. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Yeah, so just to backtrack a little, you know, I've friends that are really powerful vocalists, and friends that are really, you know, write these beautiful, captivating things on the instrument. And what I've tried to do is tell stories. And I draw on a lot of my own life experience, but I listen to stories for a living. And so I try to pull this, tell human stories of, and I write a lot of, you know, if there's Eros and Thanatos, the life energy and the death energy, I write a lot of songs about heartbreak and addiction and pain, and then I put it out into the world in a fun way. Is kind of, so that's sort of the tie-in to all this, is the transformation of the death energy into the life energy. And I try to make it a big party and make it to where everyone has fun, and, you know, we laugh, we cry, but you leave feeling seen and connected. And I've got a songwriter show tomorrow, so I'm hoping that holds true. It's been true
the
for
whole not April Fool's thing.
Yeah, that show is real, but yeah, the transformation of pain into something else, whether it's love or joy, you know, I think that's kind of what we do in the therapy room, and that's what I try to do as an artist.
Right, kind of resonates with what you were saying about Irish wakes, right?
Oh, I think I lost you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it blanked for a quick second, but like going back to the connection between how you describe that transition from the thanatic, is that how you say it? Thanatotic energy into the erotic energy.
Thanatotic, right? And erotic. That's a lyric. Yeah,
going. I don't know if that's a true word or not, but all words are made up, and I just made that up, so it's a real word now.
Love it.
But moving, like, so the kind of the parallel, the way you're describing that, and with Irish wakes, right? In the way there is kind of the celebratory aspect of that, right? I grew up not really Baptist, but grew up very Caucasian, in reserved Caucasian, in that funerals were not celebrations. They were cause for intense mourning, but not a celebratory thing, right? That's one of the things that I also kind of struggle with my own self, is how I processed my own mom's death. And I tried to include humor even in my eulogy for her, but it was still painful. It was mostly tears there. I managed to evoke a few laughs, because comedy is an integral part of who I am. It intersects in ways that I find is kind of necessary for my ability to connect with the outside world. But it is still a very somber, intense, like like gravity just increased by 100% whenever you go to a very very, how am I trying to say this? Very Southern Baptist kind of a funeral, right? So, but when I've gone to like say black churches for funerals, whole different celebratory thing. That took me. I loved it. Not that I was happy that they died, because the person that I got to attend the funeral for, he was an amazing amazing human being, and his sister, even though she was one of my employees, was more like a sister to me too. So getting to see that celebratory thing that was so juxtaposed, and seeing that transition of energy, kind of the way you're describing here, was extremely eye-opening, because I'd never experienced something like that. And so it connects with me on how you're talking about being a storyteller and moving that kind of what could be kind of a dark narrative into something that has jovial, whether it be a jovial cadence, or whether it be how your lyrical stanzas are put together, or how the tonic of the notes you're picking, right? All kind of maybe they're in a major mode, which kind of like, wow, this is a weird juxtaposition of some kind of dark stuff with this kind of Radio Disney kind of approach. Not that that's your music, but right, this kind of more.
That's what bluegrass is. It's upbeat, picking with the darkest fucking lyrics you've ever heard.
Right. Actually, maybe, I don't know if you've heard of this artist, but it's somebody that I've been talking up my friends. I actually had a client. He and I were waxing back and forth on music. He's trying to find his footing after a pretty severe brain illness, right? And that's taken away a big chunk of how he's connected to music. So we were sharing back and forth on ways of re-engaging in a new way. And he actually introduced me to an artist that when I heard him, immediately thought, I want to bring this up to Hayden, because if he hasn't heard of this artist, that could be something that kind of catches the same resonance. His name is Amigo the Devil. If you've never heard of him, amazing lyricist. And he brings in this like kind of like a dark country, borderline mariachi vibe to it. There's definitely some banjo work in there. There's the lyricism is the thing that was amazing. And but when you put it with the way the music is structured, the music can be extremely fun. Some of it literally sounded like something that my wife even said, he sounds like Jack Black here for some reason at this one point, almost like it would be like a Disney animated thing, like a dark one. You're like, I'm kind of vibing to this song, but the lyrics are really twisted here in a way that's not just doesn't disgust you, but pulls you in, as a great storyteller will, right? Even with something disturbing, right? So pebble for your pond, as I want to say, right? Check it out, Amigo the Devil. I'll even link it down below, because I really love that structure. So I wanted to offer that to you on there. Alrighty. So
I'll have to check him out.
Well, I want to kind of help us bring this to a nice climax. Since we're sex therapists, we got to bring it to a climax, right? I'm not here for nothing. Tell me about
that. Who is that from? I didn't come up with that. But I'm not here for nothing. That is, a reference to, again, the erotic, and I think in the country music world, we say we're not here for a long time, but we're here for a good time. It's kind of that ethos of life doesn't have to be this just slug. I always screw up that word. Is it a sloth? A slug? we're kind of here to create and play and connect, and there's some work and responsibility and some hard things that we have to do, kind of intermixed in there. But you got to kind of find your thing. You got to find the stuff you like to do. You got to find the people you like to do it with, even if the thing that you like to do is nothing. I'm a big believer in the power of nothing, but just finding these things that bring you alive. That's what I'm not here for nothing means to me.
I definitely resonate with that, especially the nothing aspect. In here, I've used it as the phrase purposeful purposelessness. It is like the purpose of engaging in just like it's the kind of the ultimate mindful approach here, being of this moment for no other reason than to just be of this moment, and trying. Especially, a lot of my clients end up being high performance achieving cis men, and a lot of them are kind of, I don't know how your connection with like RODBT as a kind of a somewhat of a framework for people who are on the maladaptive over controlled aspect of their behaviors, and they're an idea I'm trying to, the radical openness I try to approach with them is this idea of purposeful purposelessness, right? Is to engage in that which has no like achievement attached to it, right? You're just doing something fun because it's fun, right?
Well said.
So what is the fun supposed to do? Be fun. It's just supposed to be. It doesn't have to go toward like a grand investment that I can tell you is going to end off here with a guaranteed thing. That's the thing. You're not, if we're looking for achievement points, score full S rank at the end of life, right? High five, Jesus, I did it all. Right. Then are we really experiencing life?
Right.
I actually sucks that they've taken it away. There used to be along I-37 between Corpus and San Antonio, there used to be a Ghostbusters vehicle. The Ecto 1 was like off on the, what would that be? The east side. It's no longer there, but it would be one of those things that you ever notice that. How many times have you traveled from Corpus to San Antonio on your way? And it's over the years, probably hundreds of times. Did you ever notice that? Like, no. Like, yes, I'd see it all the time. So what would be the difference? What are you trying to do during that drive? Like, I'm just trying to get to San Antonio. Right. We're destination focused. We're not experientially focused. Right.
Right.
What is the weird thing off the side of the road? What about this taco stand? Will it give me diarrhea, or will it give me the best experience I've ever had in my life? Or both?
Both.
We don't know. Right. So yeah, the idea of the doing nothing is doing something of value. There's value in that nothingness. There's value in that stillness. Right. So in kind of bringing this down here, right? We've talked about personal philosophies. We've talked about grief. We've talked about music. We've talked about your journey through having no beard to having an epic beard, and how you've fooled me into thinking you were 6'1". So when we take when we do a macroscopic view of how this discussion has went, and first, thank you for being my first guest on here. I definitely appreciate it, especially with all the technical difficulties on my side too, and I know the difficulties you're experiencing on your side over the last few attempts to get this going. What is something we could kind of synthesize that you hope the watchers, the listeners, the stalkers kind of take away from this? If you can kind of synthesize, you hope people kind of walk away from regarding you or any of these topics.
We can edit out the dead time while I ponder. I really hope people.
It's called intentional silence.
Right. I really hope people take away the man. I'm kind of going back to your comment about the the deep mourning and the Southern Baptists, and then the Irish or the black churches having the deep celebrations. And I'm kind of like, let's do both. Like, there are some hard things in life, and we need to, kind of feel what we're feeling, and cry it out, and even rage at it, and then but we still have to find ways to feel alive and feel connected. Thinking of Pema Chodron, she talks about an old woman who told her early on. She said, "Little girl, don't let the world go hardening your heart." And we have to find a way to keep our hearts open, and in the face of all this, the shit we deal with. So that's what I hope a casual listener can take away, and that, and the radical authenticity, and I think I'll leave it at that.
Immediately when you said that about hardening, it's who's that person that has that lyrics? I'm gonna harden my heart. I'm gonna swallow my tears.
Oh, I know that one. I can't think of that.
I'm hearing the saxophone for the chorus in my head. Now that's going to be one of those earworms that I've got to listen to on the way home tonight.
Perfect. Well,
Hayden, thank you so much for coming on here, joining me, sharing your story, sharing some laughs, hearing me talk a bunch of bullshit too. Right? I've definitely had a great time tonight. Enjoyed this conversation immensely. Hopefully we get to do another conversation this time in person. I don't know when those schedules will actually kind of overlap, if you're ever going to be in the Texas area, or if you're going to the Shaw conference in October. I still haven't decided if I'm going to be, if it'll fit in my life, but if it can, I'll be there.
I'm planning on it.
Fits in your life. Cool. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much for this. And to everybody who's taking a gander at this first episode, thank you for dealing with this giraffe walk of an interview from my part. Appreciate anybody who's taken, who's held on to this far. It's going to be about 2 hours here. Even when I edit out that other part, so about 1 hour and 45, 2 hours. I think that's kind of like, that feels like a comfortable vibe of the length of time, right? I think we could cut it down if we needed to, but it takes away the character. But once again, thank you very much, and thank you all for watching.